The chase pushes deeper into the ruined area of Daiba, a place filled with monsters and violent thugs. Because the target keeps running without slowing down, the man chasing him starts losing his breath and struggles to keep pace. Frustration keeps building inside him as the dangerous surroundings make everything worse. During the pursuit, he suddenly stumbles and nearly falls, unable to understand why his life keeps turning into chaos like this. His body finally gives out from exhaustion, and the moment he collapses, several thugs surround him and confidently assume his struggle has already ended. Before they can move further, something strange catches their attention inside a nearby alley. A mysterious machine stands there, completely out of place in the abandoned district. Their curiosity immediately replaces their hostility as they begin wondering whether such a thing has ever existed there before. At the same time, two unusual figures appear with complete confidence despite the dangerous atmosphere around them. A cheerful young woman grips a sickle while smiling brightly, and beside her stands a calm man whose cold and steady presence makes him look completely prepared for battle. Together they face the chaos of Daiba without fear. The story then shifts back to the previous day. Inside a quiet home, a man calmly cooks curry when an energetic girl named Corinne suddenly arrives and loudly greets him by calling him Nyako. Her playful excitement quickly turns toward the food as she tries convincing him to let her taste the curry, but he immediately refuses and reminds her that she never even bothers using the intercom, even though he does not actually own one. Their casual teasing naturally reveals how comfortable they are around each other. Corinne soon stops joking and passes along an urgent request from Boss Shingen. A group of 30 goblins has appeared near the dungeon, and the boss wants them exterminated. Once she explains the reward of 10 canned foods, 10 ration tickets, and 100 yen, the man calmly accepts the task without hesitation. After taking the payment, he warns Corinne not to allow anyone near him because innocent people could get hurt. Corinne casually suggests that he should visit the boss more often since someone with his strength and food supply would easily become popular. She even jokingly offers herself as an option for a woman and proudly mentions her purity, but her boldness immediately earns her a light slap. Ignoring the teasing afterward, the man instructs her to tell Shingen to prepare the rewards because he plans to finish the mission before nightfall. Corinne quickly agrees and leaps out of the window with incredible agility to deliver the message. Watching her disappear so effortlessly leaves him quietly impressed. More than 20 years earlier, Earth changes completely when a dungeon suddenly appears. Because of the magic contamination spreading from it, people begin awakening skills and an age of adventurers begins. Companies rush to gather treasures from dungeons, hoping to profit from the new world. Over time, however, monster purchases stop entirely, causing dungeon exploration to collapse. Most companies abandon their operations except in the most important cities. As conditions worsen, the military becomes responsible for constant monster control while taxes continue rising higher every year. Eventually, society divides itself according to wealth and tax payments. The rich live safely inside heavily protected cities. Those barely surviving still manage to secure food while remaining exposed to danger. And the people unable to pay anything are forced into abandoned zones filled with death and monsters. Among those forgotten people lives Amano Sakimori. Even while surviving inside the abandoned district, he continues training in the dungeon every single day. His abilities and determination reveal someone refusing to surrender despite the terrible world around him. Proud of finally reaching level 2 after spending over 20 years inside dungeons, he confidently insists that his strength is genuine, even though defeating monsters only increases his stats by 4% each year. To him, the process resembles slowly building muscle through constant training. Nearby, a woman barely pays attention to his speech and simply informs him not to bother her unless he has sweets. Even though Amano realizes she is mostly ignoring him, he still tries maintaining the cool attitude of a hard-boiled man before finally deciding to focus on the goblin mission instead. Since he only needs a few more monster cores to reach his goal, his determination quickly returns. While preparing himself, he thinks about his shadow mastery skill and admires how intimidating his shadowy appearance looks, making him feel like a true dark assassin. Satisfied with himself, he confidently gets ready to hunt goblins. As he leaves his home, several cheerful locals warmly greet him and offer to guard the place while he is away. They happily accept the reward he gives them, showing how much trust they place in him despite their harsh lives. Their support reassures Amano before he heads out. While traveling, Amano reflects on how desperate the world has become. Because food shortages are so severe, most people no longer have the time or energy needed to improve their dungeon skills. Watching society slowly collapse makes him fear that humanity may truly be approaching its end. Soon afterward, a group enthusiastically gathers around Amano and calls him boss while preparing to join the mission. Although some of them secretly doubt his appearance and abilities, the reward money convinces them to cooperate. During the discussion, one member mocks Amano for supposedly lacking experience with monsters. Amano calmly explains that he has defeated a goblin before, though it happened in the outer area where weaker monsters roam. The explanation helps them understand why someone from the abandoned district still possesses such a strong body. Another member nervously admits that fighting 10 goblins simultaneously sounds terrifying. The tension inside the group suddenly rises when one man aggressively demands extra payment for using his mana and even threatens to beat Amano. Completely unfazed, Amano casually offers to owe him a favor instead and insults him by calling him a blockhead. The insult immediately enrages the man, causing him to charge forward with his fist raised. Before the attack can land, Amano silently activates Shadow Shackles. The spell instantly freezes the man in place, leaving him confused and unable to move. Amano calmly wonders whether he should simply stab him with the hidden weapon he carries. Fear immediately replaces the man's anger after realizing he cannot escape at all. Amano silently stares at him for a moment before finally smirking and telling him to leave already instead of wasting more mana. Embarrassed and nervous, the man obeys, allowing the hostility within the group to settle down. Elsewhere, a hidden figure quietly watches the group arrive and acknowledges how lucky they are. The moment arrows suddenly fly toward them, a shadow barrier instantly appears and blocks every attack with perfect precision. Nearby goblin-like creatures prepare for battle after noticing someone using archery skills. A confident man smirks and asks Shizuku whether she plans to fight this time. After calmly observing the overwhelming number of enemies, Shizuku advises caution before immediately unleashing powerful fire magic. Fire Snake and Fireball tear through the approaching goblin creatures and burn them down rapidly. The man loudly praises the destructive power of divine flames while also warning her that her mana is draining too quickly. At the same time, Shizuku begins sensing something massive approaching. Her instincts warn her that the incoming enemies are far larger than ordinary goblins. Moments later, several terrifying hobgoblins charge forward aggressively. Realizing Shizuku's mana is already low, the man decides to handle the situation personally. With complete determination, he activates the dangerous life exchange technique and immediately launches into combat. His movements remain swift and brutal as he twists a hobgoblin's neck with a deadly neck screw before following up with Moon's alt kick, launching himself upward and smashing into another enemy with devastating force. The hobgoblins continue charging violently while roaring in fury. A sinister smile slowly appears on the man's face as he prepares to finish them. Nearby, Shizuku watches closely while sensing the dark power gathering around him. The moment Shadow Blade appears, she joins the attack herself. Her sword cuts through the hobgoblins with deadly speed, sending blood spraying through the air while the surviving enemies stagger in shock. Her determination completely overwhelms the monsters despite their relentless assault. After the battle, Amano Shizuku energetically introduces herself and boldly declares that she plans to form a group with all of her victims. Her confidence remains completely shameless as she even suggests asking Enma-sama for confirmation. Soon afterward, she begins trying different poses and asks Sakimori-san for feedback while smiling brightly. Behind that cheerful behavior, however, she secretly worries about her low mana and the possibility of being noticed after causing so much destruction. Even so, she still wants to continue fighting before finally accepting that they should return before attracting attention. She reluctantly agrees to buy sweets if he has enough money and asks him to bring some from the outer area. The atmosphere soon turns serious as both of them prepare for a life exchange, symbolizing an important pact between them. With complete focus, the man activates his unique skill called Equivalent Exchange Store. A strange machine glowing with digital energy appears before them, ready to complete the agreement. Soon after, the chain store function becomes successfully added to the system, expanding the store's abilities. The man quietly considers future possibilities such as unlocking Coppin Bread or even rank F monster cores. At the same time, he notes that every new store installation consumes 10 mana from the maintenance pool. Thinking back on everything, he realizes it took 10 entire years of growth just to unlock this feature. During that time, the world only continued worsening while new guilds and modern magic schools kept appearing around him. Deep down, he feared eventually becoming outdated and forgotten. He also remembers that 3 full years have passed since he last used the shared life ability with Shizuku, making the passage of time feel even heavier. Despite everything, the man confidently declares that he will rise as the savior of the world. His next goal becomes unlocking the ability to exchange cream bread for monster cores. The excitement of that dream immediately gets interrupted by a firm refusal questioning the entire idea. Even so, the story continues following this powerful and hard-boiled man as he uses the unique Equivalent Exchange Store skill to save a collapsing world connected to Earth's deadly dungeons. 3 years earlier, our Mac stands deep inside the dungeon while preparing to face a hobgoblin alone. Since he already finishes off the smaller monsters and carefully places traps around the area, confidence slowly builds inside him. He believes the battle is nearly over and takes a brief moment to catch his breath. That confidence immediately collapses when the hobgoblin suddenly rushes toward him with a knife. Before he can react properly, the monster in red clothing overwhelms him with terrifying speed. Unlike ordinary creatures, this one moves with intelligence and brutal strength. The goblin grabs him effortlessly and throws him through the air like a broken object. That battle becomes the moment he later remembers as his encounter with Redcap. Death closes in quickly and his body reaches its limit. While barely conscious, he desperately activates the equivalent exchange store with the last strength left in his body. He inserts a rare E-rank monster core into the system, and the moment the exchange completes, his extra life skill reaches its maximum level. Because of that upgrade, he gains one final chance to survive. As his consciousness slowly returns, a calm voice informs him that his body repair process is functioning properly. The mysterious girl nearby reveals that he successfully acquires the extra life skill and narrowly escapes death. That girl introduces herself as Shizuku and explains the true cost behind the skill. Their lives become connected through the exchange system, meaning neither of them can die unless both die together. While his damaged body repairs itself in standby mode, their fates remain permanently tied to each other. Even during such a serious explanation, Shizuku casually reaches for her precious chocolate as if nothing unusual happens around her, leaving him caught between confusion and disbelief. Elsewhere, two men stand near several filthy flags carrying the phrase "fearing Kazan." Their terrible condition immediately becomes the topic of ridicule as they joke about the owner trying to imitate the famous warlord Sengoku. One of them casually remarks that careless upkeep like this has become normal nowadays. Nearby, our MC quickly denies being called Sakamore Aniki because he has no interest in such nicknames. The other man excitedly praises him for wiping out a group of hobgoblins and proudly tries becoming his subordinate. Our MC completely rejects the idea and firmly makes it clear that he neither wants nor needs followers. Ignoring the enthusiasm around him, he pushes forward and heads directly towards Shingen to collect the promised reward. While moving through the area, our MC quietly reflects on the reason behind his black clothing. He wears it partly to avoid attention whenever he switches places with Shizuku, though he secretly admits he also thinks it looks cool. Nearby, a man dressed in traditional armor greets him confidently and claims he still surpasses our MC's boss. At the same time, two bystanders whisper about how ridiculous the black outfit looks during the daytime, while another person quickly tries stopping the embarrassment before it spreads further. Soon after, the bald man hands over the mission reward because the goblin extermination finishes faster than expected. Even while teasing our MC for dressing foolishly, he still passes him a box filled with canned food, ration tickets, and 100 yen. The reward immediately gets accepted without complaint. The atmosphere stays light as the bald man even shares chocolates with him, causing an excited reaction at the mention of more sweets. As they continue talking, the bald man tries convincing Sakimori to become his subordinate. Since surviving alone in the abandoned areas remains difficult, he believes working together would make life easier. Sakimori calmly refuses because he prefers a life filled with stimulation and freedom instead of being tied down under someone else. Even when the bald man points out how useful his spells could become outside the city, their exchange continues more like casual banter than a serious argument. Their conversation suddenly gets interrupted when Corinne rushes in with excitement written all over her face. She reveals that something strange appears inside the abandoned area. Since gasoline shortages prevent the military from moving around freely, the sudden appearance of two vending machines makes no sense at all. Her explanation immediately catches the bald man's attention, though he struggles to believe such machines could survive in a dangerous zone filled with thieves and monsters. Corinne quickly clarifies that these are not ordinary vending machines and insists everyone should see them personally. At the same time, Nyako becomes interested and wonders what the machines are actually selling. Because of that curiosity, the bald man invites Sakimori to join the investigation. Corinne warns them that the machines appear inside extremely dangerous territory, making it possible that they are mimics instead. Hearing that, the dark-haired man jokingly questions whether she truly wants him acting as her bodyguard since protection always comes with a price. Instead of feeling embarrassed, she confidently offers her body as payment while stretching playfully and teasing him openly. Her teasing quickly escalates when she dramatically accuses Sakimori of touching her chest and declares herself destined to become his wife because of it. Sakimori reacts with both shock and amusement while she aggressively chases after him and criticizes his so-called hard-boiled personality. The others immediately step in to calm the chaos and even offer chocolates as peace offerings while volunteering to investigate together. Once the group finally reaches the suspicious vending machine, everyone debates whether the object is truly a machine or simply a disguised mimic. To test it, the dark-haired man fires a flame arrow directly at it, shocking Corinne with his recklessness. While tension rises around them, she nervously worries about what might happen if the machine breaks. The dark-haired man calmly explains that it probably is not a mimic because anything damaged or valuable would already be stolen in this area. Moments later, the machine suddenly activates. Its screen lights up and displays an item called cop bread, which costs 5 rank F monster cores. Everyone immediately focuses on the strange system while discussing how the cores work. One member receives instructions to place a monster core into the machine near a corpse. Although hesitant at first, he eventually pushes the core inside randomly. The machine instantly reacts, catching everyone off guard. After inserting 5 monster cores, the machine dispenses a loaf of cop bread. Confusion spreads through the group because nobody fully trusts the mysterious item. Even so, they encourage each other to taste it carefully. Corinne remains especially nervous about eating unknown food while the others pressure her into trying it first. Eventually, someone takes a cautious bite while everyone watches closely. To their complete surprise, the bread tastes delicious and resembles genuine wheat bread instead of the terrible mixed bread normally found in the outer areas. Relief immediately spreads through the group once Corinne confirms she feels completely fine after eating it. Excitement quickly grows when Corinne discovers the vending machine offers more than bread. It can also exchange 5 rank G monster cores for 1 liter of clean water. The bald man reflects on how difficult obtaining clear water usually is, and admits he originally expects the machine to focus entirely on food. Even so, he accepts that water alone already holds incredible value in their collapsing world. As everyone continues discussing the machine, they slowly realize its true purpose revolves around spending monster cores in exchange for resources. Wanting to investigate further, the bald man asks Corinne where the second machine appears. She explains that it stands near the dungeon zone filled with monsters. Because of the danger, he offers to lend them a horse while he personally searches other areas for additional machines. Meanwhile, Corinne energetically announces a goblin hunting mission with 3 ration tickets as payment. Another member mentions the increasing number of slimes nearby and points out that they also carry monster cores. The bald man insists they need to properly investigate the situation before things become more dangerous. Motivated by the possible rewards, another member eagerly prepares to hunt slimes together with friends. During all this, the dark-haired man quietly thinks about the truth behind the vending machines. They are not random objects at all, but part of the chain store system he personally creates. Having already established 5 different locations, he finally reveals the secret of his unique skill called Equivalent Exchange Store. Through this ability, monster cores can be traded for useful items, and the stores continue growing stronger as more cores get collected. Anyone can eventually receive supplies simply by feeding monster cores into the system. While thinking about the future, determination fills his expression because his real goal is much larger than survival alone. He plans to rebuild the world's ruined economy through this system and eventually save humanity itself. Sakimori becomes fully convinced that rebuilding the economy is the only way to save the collapsing world. Because of that belief, he focuses entirely on expanding the equivalent exchange store system. Instead of starting with expensive items, he begins with basic necessities like water and bread. His plan revolves around slowly increasing the store's value until even the army becomes interested in the high-quality supplies. While explaining this idea confidently, his companion points out that their profits still remain low, but Sakimori refuses to lose faith in the strategy. Only 3 days later, the system already grows far beyond its original setup. Sakimori confirms that 4 stores now operate inside Tokyo's abandoned zones, while another appears within the inner city itself. At the same time, he prepared plans for 10 additional stores across Osaka and Nagoya. To protect the secret behind the system, he intentionally designs the stores to appear like ordinary parts of the world instead of obvious products of someone's skill. While expanding the network, he carefully reviews the revenue earned from different monster core ranks and studies how people react to the exchange prices. As he looks over the numbers, he starts questioning whether demanding 5 F-rank cores for 1 loaf of bread might be too expensive, especially if the customer only fights regular goblins. Even so, he understands that the danger level changes completely once goblin archers appear. Because most people still underestimate the variety and threat of F-rank monsters, he begins creating a proper list that includes creatures like slimes and giant roaches. His companion notices him working seriously and becomes curious about the list. Sakimori casually explains that organizing the information benefits him as much as everyone else. While he continues planning, his shadow surveillance suddenly sends him an alert through crows and black cats connected to his magic. The message immediately informs him that the army enters the abandoned area sooner than expected. Since the military only reacts this quickly when something important appears, he realizes they probably suspect the core stores hold major value. The country's current army already changes heavily after frustrated former self-defense force members seize political control during the growing dungeon crisis. Continuous arguments over military deployment and increasing dungeon destruction only make the government harsher with time. Meanwhile, military forces arrive in the abandoned district under strict orders. One military engineer openly complains about being assigned to such a filthy place, while another companion reacts with discomfort toward the situation. The engineer eventually apologizes to Major Marume and explains that the diet takes the core stores seriously enough to demand direct investigation. Their mission focuses on confirming whether every store truly sells the same items. Major Marume listens with complete exhaustion and quietly concludes that nothing surprising will come from the investigation anyway. Looking around the ruined district, he bitterly remarks that the people surviving there no longer even feel human in the eyes of society. The soldiers surrounding him share the same cruel mentality. They openly treat the abandoned residents like useless trash because they do not pay taxes. Some even believe eliminating them would improve the country. At the same time, they assume those residents will scatter and hide the moment danger appears, just like frightened monsters. Their discussion abruptly stops when a radio transmission confirms the discovery of a core store nearby. The entire squad immediately moves toward the location. At that moment, several residents quietly gather around the vending machine without realizing the military approaches. The atmosphere remains calm until Major Marume notices the terrible smell of the abandoned district, reaching them even from a distance. Nearby, a child innocently wonders about the source of the odor while standing beside their mother. The situation suddenly shifts when a soldier fires a warning shot into the air and aggressively orders the residents away from the machine. He announces that the military will investigate the core store personally and threatens to shoot anyone who approaches. The soldiers quickly force the residents to disperse while preparing to inspect the machine according to official procedures. Even though they assume the products remain identical to the other reports, they still need to confirm the machine's durability and materials. Before the inspection properly begins, another urgent radio message arrives warning them that goblins, hobgoblins, and goblin knights are approaching the area. The tension around the site immediately rises. As the monsters draw closer, the military engineer becomes curious rather than afraid. Since this battle provides a perfect opportunity to study the creatures, the soldiers begin discussing how the goblins evolved over time. They wonder whether the monsters now rely more heavily on weapons, skills, or new combat methods. One of them becomes especially eager to witness the strength of fighters from the inner city. When the goblins and hobgoblins finally charge forward, the military officer calmly steps ahead and declares that he will handle the situation personally. Because bullets remain precious, the soldiers immediately focus their gunfire on enemy archers first to avoid wasting ammunition. At the center of the battlefield, the warrior draws a crystal blade and rushes directly into combat. His confidence remains overwhelming as he cuts through enemies without hesitation. The crystal sword immediately proves itself far more deadly than its appearance suggests. One goblin falls apart under a precise slash, and moments later the warrior leaps into the air before unleashing a spinning spiral slash that tears through multiple enemies at once. Nearby monsters collapse under additional rushing attacks while the battlefield fills with screams and clashing steel. Without losing composure, the warrior follows up with a brutal hard slash that cuts deeply through another monster. Even while surrounded by roaring enemies, he treats their anger as meaningless because they are still nothing more than monsters to him. One goblin attempts to block his advance using a massive spinning shield, but the warrior remains completely unimpressed and dismisses the weapon as inferior to a fan. With calm confidence, he dashes forward and prepares his finishing move. The tension around the battlefield sharpens the moment he unleashes Goboard Slash. The angular strike slices through the air with terrifying precision and tears directly through the goblin's defenses. With only one attack, the sword cuts through iron armor and leaves the enemy stunned and bleeding heavily. The surrounding soldiers watch the scene in complete amazement as they recognize the overwhelming skill of one of Tokyo's 4 heavenly kings, Major Marume Nagayoshi. Confident that the battle is already decided, the Major orders everyone to finish the investigation quickly. Watching him fight leaves others deeply aware of the difference between ordinary people and elite warriors from the inner city. His movements move beyond normal human limits, proving that people inside the protected cities discover far more effective ways to strengthen their abilities. While Sakimori thinks about this difference in strength, his companion casually interrupts his gloomy mood and criticizes him for acting pathetic again. Attention soon shifts toward the Major's sword, which is revealed to be forged from monster ore and enhanced through magic power for superior skill conductivity. Sakimori understands immediately that a skilled craftsman creates it, which no longer surprises him. What interests him more is the strange fact that most skill users rarely rely on firearms anymore, probably because ammunition becomes too scarce. Even with that shortage, the military still places powerful close-range fighters like Marume on the front lines. Because of everything he witnesses, Sakimori decides the stores need a wider lineup of items. Even if the army struggles to secure rare products at first, he still believes gradual growth remains the best path. While he studies the menu options seriously, his lively companion enthusiastically pushes for chocolate to become available next. Ignoring the distraction, Sakimori carefully selects what he considers the most important addition possible. To everyone's confusion, he chooses a simple wooden stick. Despite how ridiculous the item sounds, he unlocks it by investing 1,000 times its normal value. The cost becomes possible because the stores already collect 20% of all inserted cores as usage fees during the past 3 days. Completely satisfied with the decision, he laughs confidently and considers the investment reasonable. Unlike fantasy games where characters instantly become powerful, reality requires gradual development because most people still cannot properly fight even F-rank monsters. Holding the plain 1-meter wooden stick in his hand, Sakimori insists that even simple tools can help people grow stronger step by step. His goal now revolves around spreading practical beginner items across stores throughout the country so ordinary people can slowly build strength. Meanwhile, customers across different areas already start experimenting by inserting E-rank cores into the machines, hoping higher-level items will eventually appear. Despite their curiosity, humanity still remains weak overall. Most people continue struggling against low-rank monsters, and nobody successfully confirms any truly high-rank item yet. One man quietly reflects on the situation and wishes someone brave enough would eventually risk inserting a valuable high-rank core into the system. Later, a group cheerfully approaches Sakimori and announces that they successfully gather everything he requests. As he looks at them, he notices their healthier faces and improved condition compared to before. Their small progress becomes proof that his plan slowly starts working. Accepting that true change cannot happen overnight, Sakimori calmly prepares himself to move forward one step at a time. The group proudly brings over a cage built entirely from wooden sticks. Inside, several slimes bounce around restlessly, proving the trap works perfectly. After inspecting the structure carefully, Sakimori approves their work and confirms the cage is sturdy enough for the plan. He immediately checks whether anyone gets injured during the process because handling monsters carelessly in the abandoned area often leads to serious injuries. One of the trapped creatures strangely resembles a giant cockroach more than a slime, making its appearance even more unsettling. Not long after, Corinne suddenly appears and energetically takes credit for helping deal with the slimes. Since she hates missing interesting situations, she complains that nobody informs her sooner. Even while acting playful, she seriously warns the group that this job is dangerous for inexperienced people. Thick gloves and protective clothing become necessary because even small mistakes can lead to infections or injuries. Sakimori reveals that he actually gave these instructions 2 days earlier, making him confused about how news spreads so quickly. Before anyone properly reacts, he suddenly sets the entire slime cage on fire. Flames immediately spread across the wooden structure, causing panic among the group as they desperately tried to stop him from burning everything. As smoke rises into the air, Sakimori calmly explains the logic behind the method. Burning slimes alone does not attract monsters, but mixing slime smoke with burning trees creates a scent that pulls low-level creatures toward the area. Corinne listens carefully while realizing he intentionally plans to lure monsters closer. Sakimori then remembers the time he accidentally burns an entire forest that contains a dungeon. The disaster nearly costs him his life because too many monsters gather at once. Since there is no dungeon nearby this time, he reassures everyone that fewer creatures should appear. The mood lightens briefly when someone playfully taps Sakimori's head and jokes about his reputation as a dungeon maniac. That relaxed atmosphere disappears moments later when the smoke finally produces results. A swarm of massive rats suddenly rushes toward the area while squeaking aggressively. Corinne cheerfully points out how much slime hunting has increased recently, while Sakimori nervously realizes the smoke probably attracts every starving rat nearby. The hooded man scratches the back of his head awkwardly and starts wondering whether he creates more trouble than intended. The playful woman nearby teases him for biting his lip nervously. Even though the original plan changes, he still decides they should continue the hunt and earn money from it. The woman warns him that the thief cat watches from a distance, so switching positions carelessly would become dangerous. Because of that warning, he chooses to stay where he is despite carrying only a knife for protection. The woman dramatically cheers him on anyway, leaving him even more confused. As the rats continue focusing entirely on the smoke, the hooded man notices something important. Their obsession with the burning scent prevents them from paying attention to nearby humans. Realizing this creates a perfect opportunity, he suddenly kicks one of the rats away with precise timing. At that moment, his shadow cat skill becomes noticeable. Quickly adapting to the situation, the hooded man forms a new strategy. He directs Mike to eliminate the rats one at a time while he distracts the rest. The cat immediately responds with excitement and jumps into action without hesitation. With fast and precise movements, the creature tears through another rat while Sakimori watches with approval and points toward the next target. As more rats fall, the remaining creatures grow increasingly agitated. Watching the hunt unfold so smoothly, Sakimori starts wondering whether his involvement even matters anymore. Since the rats stay completely fixated on the smoke, anyone could safely hunt them under these conditions. The unexpected advantage makes him realize he discovers an extremely efficient hunting method. That confidence suddenly breaks apart when a gigantic rat bursts forward from the smoke. The monster immediately feels different from the others, forcing the man to summon a fireball while staring at it seriously. Flames surround the creature as it charges with terrifying force. At the same time, the cat leaps forward to intercept it before the attack reaches everyone else. The sight immediately shocks Sakimori because he realizes this monster is far more dangerous than ordinary rats. Its appearance reminds him of a rare species he has not seen in a long time. Without wasting time, the cat jumps into combat while Sakimori activates Aqua Prison and Iron Charge together in preparation for a counterattack. The giant rat crashes into the ground with overwhelming force, smashing the earth apart like a bowling ball hitting fragile pins. Debris flies everywhere while everyone struggles to process the destruction. The girl quickly identifies the creature as an iron rat, a rare monster completely different from normal giant rats. Understanding the danger, Sakimori reluctantly calls for Shizuku because handling the creature alone becomes impossible. Shizuku immediately accepts responsibility and confidently prepares herself for battle. She casually suggests switching places while wearing his torn shadow cloak. Instead of focusing on the danger, Sakimori becomes more worried about her damaging the cloak itself. At the same time, another concern bothers him deeply. If Corinne sees Shizuku fighting openly, his carefully maintained tough image could completely fall apart. Ignoring his worries, Shizuku steps forward confidently and declares herself the Iron Rat's opponent. The monster immediately prepares Iron Charge and rushes toward her at full speed. Instead of retreating, Shizuku skillfully dodges the attack, causing the rat to slam into the ground hard enough to shatter the earth beneath it. While watching her movements, Sakimori reflects on her terrifying combat talent. She can turn almost anything into a deadly weapon, whether it is iron, knives, or ordinary objects. Her attacks always carry frightening precision. Completely calm under pressure, Shizuku confidently believes the Iron Rat cannot easily break through her defenses. The moment the rat prepares another charge, Shizuku instantly closes the distance and attacks head-on. Her timing remains flawless as she collides directly against the creature's overwhelming force. At that moment, her abilities become fully visible. Her level 30 strength, maximum combat talent, and level 2 mastery over combat techniques clearly separate her from ordinary fighters. The intense energy surrounding her body makes her overwhelming power impossible to ignore. Even the people watching from afar acknowledge that Shizuku's strength is absurd. Level 30 fighter already stands far beyond normal survivors. Despite the destruction spreading around her, Shizuku casually smirks and admits that even she feels shaken by the force of her own abilities. Her relaxed expression contrasts heavily with the devastation surrounding the battlefield. Once the fight finally ends, the cloaked figure decides to switch back again. Lying on the ground nearby rests a rare F-rank monster core, the valuable reward earned from defeating the Iron Rat. Looking over the massive destruction left behind, the figure quietly considers forcing the local kids to handle the cleanup work. Without hesitation, the cloaked figure orders the children to clean the entire ruined area. The scale of destruction immediately overwhelms them as they stare at the shattered battlefield in disbelief. Throughout all of this, Corinne remains unusually silent. Her unreadable expression stays fixed on the cloaked figure as their eyes finally meet. Corinne is introduced as an information broker who possesses the cat transformation skill. Because of this ability, she carries cat ears and a tail, making her appearance unusual in a world where skills define everyone. Instead of being treated with disgust, her rarity becomes something others notice with interest. Even though her skill level stays low, people still value her role, and some even envy what she can do. Despite constantly entering dungeons to grow stronger, Corinne herself describes Amano Sakimori as someone who behaves beyond normal limits. Sakimori controls a territory that belongs only to him, and inside this area he uses black crows and black cats as familiars. Because of their presence, he detects threats early and removes danger before it spreads. These familiars also carry offensive power, and he controls them with precision that most users of similar skills fail to reach. This difference in mastery separates him from ordinary skill holders. Sakimori also handles elemental powers with ease, switching between fire and water without hesitation. Along with that, he develops a strong regeneration ability that allows his body to recover fully after damage over time. Corinne observes all of this carefully and understands how dangerous he really is. Even though he works alone, his threat level gets classified as D+. Because of this rating, it surprises others that the government never tries to recruit him. At the same time, more violent groups and cult-like organizations exist, which makes the situation even more complicated. Despite his strength, the reality remains that even Sakimori is not safe from a single bullet. While this situation continues, his companions become excited about the reward system for the day. They exchange monster cores for bread without hesitation, showing how dependent they are on the store system. Sakimori allows this arrangement but adds one strict condition. He demands that they become his subordinates in return. The group accepts immediately and even asks whether their friends can also join. Sakimori agrees without resistance. A cat-eared girl reacts by pointing out how unusual their enthusiasm appears. She then questions Sakimori's sudden decision to gather subordinates. In response, he explains that the expanding stores will change the balance of power in the abandoned areas. Because of this shift, he expects groups that try to control or exploit the system to appear soon, so he prepares in advance to avoid losing control. Sakimori then declares the name of his organization as Amatsugahara Corporation. Corinne acknowledges that the name sounds fitting, but she clearly refuses to become his subordinate. Sakimori does not argue and instead reacts calmly with a light laugh, satisfied with the name itself. The cat-eared girl warns him that controlling an information broker requires far more strength than he currently shows. Sakimori responds by admitting she already knows too much, and trying to recruit her would immediately bring conflict with other factions. She challenges him in a playful tone, pushing him to improve his persuasion if he wants her cooperation. At the same time, she questions whether he plans to feed his followers only bread, forcing him to give a serious answer. Sakimori responds by throwing a monster core toward Corinne. She catches it and reacts with curiosity. He then shifts the discussion and asks her to reveal the locations of all core stores. Corinne responds with a simple acknowledgement before explaining the distribution. She informs him that 12 stores exist near dungeons in the abandoned area, while 3 more exist near dungeons in the inner city, all shown clearly on a map. From this information, Sakimori concludes that no stores exist in outer regions where dungeons do not appear. Corinne confirms that observation and explains that stores only spawn near dungeon zones. Sakimori then understands that people living in outer regions cannot easily access abandoned area stores because the danger level prevents movement. While Corinne silently watches a nearby group, Sakimori focuses on children carrying baskets filled with bread. He realizes that Corinne likely intends to use these people as part of her own plan. At the same time, Corinne casually praises his intelligence and shows playful affection, but Sakimori senses that she does not fully take him seriously. Later, Corinne walks alone through a narrow alley under a dark, star-filled sky. She whistles casually while moving forward, but her instincts suddenly trigger, forcing her to stop and turn her head. Her expression sharpens as she senses approaching people. She responds in a teasing tone, addressing them while pretending to look relaxed. A group of rough-looking men approaches her and begins mocking her situation, questioning how her business is going. Corinne responds lightly, stating that she is always poor, always busy, and always hungry. This answer only increases their laughter. The mood changes quickly when one of them orders everyone to stop joking. The men then reveal their intent. Holding a crowbar and smiling aggressively, they demand that Corinne lead them to her house, assuming she has money saved. Corinne's expression immediately changes as her gaze sharpens and her attitude becomes cold. Her reaction causes the men to pause, as they sense danger in her behavior. One of the men steps forward but starts losing confidence. Corinne calmly acknowledges that they have noticed her danger sense. She warns them to leave while offering a final chance to back off. The leader rejects the warning immediately and orders his group to break her arms and legs, showing they remain confident. He swings his bat forward while shouting aggressively. Corinne dodges the attack with precise movement, causing the strike to miss completely. The failed attack increases the frustration of the group, and one of them urges the others not to hold back. In response, Corinne reveals a hidden weapon beneath her coat, shocking the attackers as they step back in confusion and alarm. A confident smile appears on Corinne's face as she prepares to take control of the fight. She reveals her cat transformation ability along with the hidden weapon, confirming her true combat capability. The man facing her reacts in disbelief and admits he never hears of such a skill before. Corinne calmly explains that this hidden weapon remains a secret technique she rarely exposes because anyone who discovers it usually gets eliminated. The enraged man immediately charges at her again, raising his weapon while shouting. Corinne avoids the attack without effort and counters with a precise strike using her hidden weapon. The attack lands cleanly, and blood confirms the impact as the man realizes her overwhelming strength too late. Corinne remains calm after the strike and coldly warns that survival is unlikely for those who underestimate her. She then states firmly that picking a fight with an officer is a serious mistake. Finally, she reveals her identity as Kazama Corinne, Lieutenant Colonel of the National Army. Sakimori continues by clarifying that the name Amatsugahara Corporation is not random at all. He explains that it comes from a distorted version of Takamagara, the land of gods, and he presents it as a carefully chosen identity rather than a casual naming decision. Because of this explanation, he treats the name as something meaningful and structured, not just a label. At the same time, the girl reacts with excitement as she realizes the internal structure of the group. She confirms that Sakimori is acting as the president while she holds the position of vice president. Since she only now fully understands the setup, she happily announces that she has finished bathing. Sakimori responds in a calm and casual way, acknowledging her statement without making it a big moment. She further confirms that the others also complete their bathing process, and she expresses genuine happiness after experiencing a proper warm bath for the first time. Because of this comfort, she relaxes in a flower-filled environment and enjoys the warmth that surrounds her. After the bathing process ends, the group quickly moves on to the next task and gathers the sticks they collected earlier. Sakimori takes control of the situation and instructs everyone to line up after changing. He immediately warns them that they still carry smell and must stay still for proper cleaning. To solve this, he introduces a makeshift jet bath system that uses high-vibration water to remove dirt even without soap. Because of this method, the group receives a fast cleaning process that surprises them, especially when water suddenly splashes over them while they are told to keep their eyes closed. Their reactions mix confusion and laughter as they feel the refreshing effect. After cleaning, Sakimori distributes scarves to everyone and states firmly that all subordinates must wear them from now on. Because of his tone, the group accepts the scarves and wraps them around themselves, showing both surprise and satisfaction. One of them hesitantly questions whether they are really allowed to keep them, but Sakimori reinforces that they are now his subordinates, so the items belong to them. He then explains an important condition attached to the scarves. He informs them that the material is extremely weak against magic and will melt quickly if even weak spells touch it. Because of this limitation, he reassures them that he will replace any damaged scarf immediately, and he expects no one to misuse or harm them. After delivering this warning, he confirms once again that they understand everything clearly. Immediately after this, he announced the beginning of Amat Shugahara Corporation's first official job. The girl reacts with excitement and suggests dramatic boss entrances, such as appearing from a manhole or a well. Sakimori listens with a tired expression, showing that he does not take the idea seriously, and the scene shifts to a wider view of the surrounding city area. Sakimori then explains the actual mission plan. He decides to lure giant rats by using sticks coated in slime residue and burning them to create smoke. Because the smoke attracts low-level monsters, the plan allows the children to fight and gather resources safely. He assigns Mike, the shadow cat, to accompany the children for protection, ensuring they are not exposed to danger alone. As a result, the kids begin hunting with excitement, focusing on collecting frank monsters and gathering cores. While observing them, Sakimori reflects on his decision to recruit children. He originally believes it will help build strength and prevent betrayal, but watching their excitement makes him feel uneasy. He realizes this is the first time they receive real protection from someone. Because of this situation, he understands that the arrangement is not truly balanced, since he is an adult and they are still children. Even so, he continues forward while holding a rare frank monster core and considers using it for further preparations. Later, he reviews the item exchange list together with the girl. When asked what item he plans to choose, he points directly at the status up potion. Because of this selection, both of them begin analyzing its description. They discover that the potion has a total stat limit of 300, meaning it stops working once a person exceeds that threshold. This realization leads them to conclude that growth through potions cannot continue endlessly, so they cannot rely on it for unlimited strength. Sakimori immediately decides to use the potion anyway because he understands that stats form the base of everything. He drinks it without hesitation, and the girl comments on how quickly he makes the decision. While doing so, he casually mentions that the potion tastes like orange. After consumption, his updated stats appear, showing major increases in mana, stamina, strength, dexterity, and magic, along with improved skill levels. The girl then reveals her own status and explains that she distributes her growth across all attributes instead of focusing only on mana. Because of this balanced approach, her stamina, strength, and dexterity increase while her magic remains low. However, her combat techniques and unique skills improve significantly. Sakimori responds by warning her that ignoring magic will create serious problems later, especially when facing enemies that rely on spells. He compares their situation to a game where early choices cause later disadvantages through status effects. The girl replies confidently that she avoids raising magic because their current stats remain too low. Even so, Sakimori senses that she is hiding part of her real story. He suspects there is a reason she refuses to explain how she nearly died or why she chose to share her life with him. Because of this silence, he becomes frustrated and reflects on how weak humans remain in general. He concludes that humans remain capped at 300 stat points and stay at F rank, which places them at the same level as goblins and giant rats. Because of this limitation, he accepts that growth requires constant grinding. With this realization, he decides to visit the children next. The setting shifts to the outer area, where tax-paying citizens live under heavy protection. Guards monitor the region strictly, making access easier than the inner city but still tightly controlled. Without proper residential proof at night, anyone gets expelled into the abandoned area, often with extreme force and sometimes even violence. A group of people stands behind a barbed wire fence, observing the harsh system of the divided world. A nervous boy informs his boss that people are watching them. Because of this, the boss realizes that attention is not caused by smell but by their clothing. When the boy wonders if they still smell bad, he warns him not to voice every thought. The boy then points out that the unpleasant smell actually comes from another nearby group. Despite this, the boss explains that standing out is part of their plan. He even mentions that he shaves his beard specifically for this purpose. When soldiers approach them, he confidently announces that they represent a Matsugahara corporation and have come to deliver bread. Because of their appearance and behavior, the soldiers become curious and begin to inspect them. The smell of fresh wheat catches the soldiers' attention, and they recognize the possible product connection. One soldier asks whether it is related to Amatsugahara Corporation, which increases their interest further. After verifying their credentials, the soldiers apologize for the inconvenience and allow them to pass without trouble. As they move forward, the group casually waves goodbye, and the boss assures the soldiers that they will visit regularly. The soldiers accept this arrangement and let them proceed. After some distance, the younger man questions whether it was wise to present themselves as a source of easy money. The older man explains that this appearance helps them gain trust and favors from soldiers in the long run. When the younger man praises his strength, the older man rejects the idea and calls himself weak. He explains that his actions come from understanding how powerless people survive, which he describes as wisdom. As they continue walking, the younger man reflects on how intense his words sound. Eventually, they notice a long ration line for food distribution. When they discuss opening a stall, a local authority figure explains the system. He informs them that the best location costs 10,000 yen and requires a 20% sales tribute. While observing the area, they notice how crowded the system is, with some people pushed into corners while others secure better positions through payment. The authority further explains that prime locations always belong to those who pay the most, and resistance leads to harassment. One member realizes the system operates without official licensing, while another confirms that this is simply how things function in the area. The older man then states that rules always exist everywhere, but only money and power decide who controls them. With a confident expression, he declares the beginning of their second job under the name Amatsugahara Corporation. The group begins by confirming that they have already hunted close to 800 giant rats, but the situation remains confusing because the spawn rate of these creatures keeps rising without any clear reason. They explain that an exact count cannot be maintained since the area would need to be completely cleared and reset at the same time to track numbers properly. Because of this instability, they rely on rough estimates instead of precise tracking. A brief flash of earlier activity shows Mike continuously fighting giant rats without pause, which highlights how exhausting and endless the hunting process has become. Since the enemies keep appearing, the effort feels constant rather than progressing toward completion. As the discussion continues, attention shifts toward the value of the rewards. The group studies silver coins and paper bills and reacts with surprise at how accurately some people can calculate their worth. Because of this realization, motivation increases, and they begin planning to scale up their sales activity. One member even offers to teach basic counting up to 10, showing how simple their starting point still is. At the same time, another figure demonstrates a skill called heat to warm freshly baked bread. This is done so the bread can be sold while still soft and attractive to anyone passing by. A nearby man expresses doubt about selling bread through black market methods, but the seller encourages him to at least share a piece with others nearby. Because of this suggestion, hesitation slowly shifts into curiosity. The man carefully smells the bread first and reacts with surprise when he notices how fresh it is. After taking a bite, he is shocked to realize that it is actual white bread, something he did not expect in this environment. While he continues eating, crumbs fall and attract attention from people around him, which naturally increases interest in the product. Because of this reaction, customers start confirming the price of 300 yen per roll. The taste and warmth convince them quickly, and one person immediately orders 3 rolls to eat on the spot. The seller calmly gives change with a friendly attitude, which helps maintain trust among buyers. Since the bread remains warm in their hands, the customers decide it is safe to consume immediately, which increases confidence in the product. As more people taste it, positive feedback spreads quickly and demand rises sharply. Because of this growing interest, The seller manages the crowd by asking everyone to form a line. The flow of customers increases rapidly, and the stock sells out in a very short time. This outcome creates satisfaction among the team, who feel proud that their product is accepted so well. A playful boy taps the man's shoulder and addresses him as boss, which strengthens their sense of unity. While observing the customers, the group reflects that people in this area behave honestly in survival conditions and rarely engage in negotiation tactics. Because of their desperation, they accept food without resistance, which makes their behavior appear simple and pure. Concerns arise about resellers trying to exploit the system, but the man rejects the idea of increasing prices. He explains that trust cannot be built through money alone, so keeping prices stable is more important than maximizing profit. Because of this belief, he accepts a small gain of 2,500 yen as their first real profit from the store system. After calculating earnings, he breaks down deductions such as gatekeeper payment, rent, and tribute fees. Although he dislikes how money is taken without effort by others, he still decides to use the remaining income to feed the children. This decision is based on his belief that loyalty forms through kindness and providing food rather than control. Meanwhile, the children react with excitement and announce that they are moving out, which signals a new and hopeful stage for them. Because of this shift, the man encourages them to choose any food they want without restriction, treating it as payment for their work. The children respond with visible excitement as they explore their options. One child immediately points at skewered meat and chooses it with enthusiasm. Because of the invitation, the group begins eating freely, enjoying both the meat and unfamiliar soup. As the meal continues, one child shyly asks for more, and the man allows it without hesitation while quietly observing their happiness. While this continues, the group notices that they are being followed even after leaving the black market area. Because of suspicious movement nearby, the man warns that standing out too much naturally attracts danger, comparing it to insects drawn toward light. A younger companion tries to respond nervously, but the man continues with a calm and self-aware attitude, accepting his own comparison. The children express gratitude for being taken in as subordinates and continue enjoying their meal while asking for seconds. The man responds with a slight smirk and tells them to get it themselves instead of waiting for him. He then explains that paying them with money is too dangerous because it could be stolen or misused, so food remains the safest form of payment for now. The children accept this reasoning because they understand it as fair compensation for their work. As they leave the area with their gathered supplies, they notice that no one interferes with them once they exit the outer zone. This gives a temporary sense of safety, but it does not last long. A lively girl suddenly calls out and mentions Shizuka Revenger while also teasing a boy for staying too close and questioning his understanding of the term Revenger. At that moment, arrows suddenly begin raining down toward them. Because of this sudden attack, the man immediately orders the children to stay close. He uses a shadow barrier skill to block the incoming arrows, which protects the group but reveals that they are under organized attack. The attackers react with frustration after realizing their ambush fails. The man then confronts the group, pointing out that they continue to track him and questioning how they obtain their supplies. Because of limited information about the stores, he suspects they believe he discovered some hidden or magical source rather than a structured system. A lively girl again calls out Shizuka Revenger during this tension, while the man notices that the attackers show no fear of his abilities. Since they initiate violence without warning, he refuses to share any information. The leader of the attackers then shifts strategy and threatens to target the children instead. Because of this escalation, the man prepares to respond with full force, deciding to demonstrate his power again. He activates Iron Skin, which strengthens his body and creates a hardened defensive state. In response, the enemy launches a fire web attack, sending flames toward him. However, he remains calm and studies the incoming attack without panic. He then confidently states that his Iron Skin is enough to block weak attacks, showing complete confidence in his defense. The opponent admits that he originally did not want to enter the abandoned area but continues anyway because of money. While this is happening, the man mocks him and declares that retreat is no longer an option. Because of this, he unleashes a new technique called Mass Fire Arrow, which surprises everyone due to its sudden intensity and heat. Observers question whether this skill comes from a recent stat increase, while the opponent reacts in shock as the situation escalates beyond expectation. The man then follows up with a powerful Iron Straight attack, landing a clean hit that causes serious damage. After observing the exchange, the opponent recognizes that the man has reached level 1 and understands that he has put significant effort into his growth. However, he still dismisses it as insufficient to change the outcome of the battle. Because of this, the injured man suffers severe burns on his arm, loses strength, and collapses in pain. While he struggles on the ground, the observer notes that even reaching level 1 has made him more durable than before, but still not enough to avoid injury. The defeated man finally gives up and pleads for mercy, accepting his loss. The victor responds coldly, reminding him that in the abandoned area defeat means death. He then adds that survival would only have been possible in the outer area, before dismissing him completely. 2 weeks pass as Sakimori builds a steady training routine focused on circulating magic power throughout his body. Because of this constant practice, his mana control improves day by day, turning it into a fixed part of his daily life rather than a separate effort. During this period, the girl casually offers to show a spinning move, treating it like a playful demonstration. She does this mainly to break the tension of being watched too closely. Sakimori refuses her offer and responds with teasing remarks, pointing out that she usually follows it with a flashy spin attack and loud shout anyway. Even with this light conversation, both of them sense that something important is getting closer. The girl soon notices that her body is overflowing with mana, which leads her to conclude that her skill is ready to level up. Because of this, she becomes more focused, realizing a shift in her strength is near. At the same time, Sakimori reflects on what reaching level 3 means, understanding that it marks the end of being a beginner and signals a real increase in power. The girl then explains that advancement is not just about simple control over shadow or fire skills. She hints that higher-level magic involves abilities beyond basic elemental usage. Because of this, she avoids fully explaining her new technique and keeps it hidden, treating it as classified. She later demonstrates a flashy electric cross-thunder chop which confuses and frustrates Sakimori due to its dramatic nature. While this continues, Sakimori notices that another presence has arrived nearby. Because of this new arrival, the focus of the scene shifts to a more open communal space where people gather together, talking and preparing food in a shared environment. A young girl excitedly calls out to Sakimori as he enters calmly with a composed attitude. Nearby, elderly women rest on boxes while others greet him warmly and mention that pork miso soup is being served. Because of the friendly reception, Sakimori becomes slightly confused and questions why people keep approaching him, since he considers himself only a suspicious man in black clothing. The girl explains that rumors about him protecting weak children spread among the community. Because of this belief, people now assume he is someone who can protect others as well. She further advises that attracting skilled individuals requires first taking care of those closest, since leadership grows through example. Sakimori rejects this interpretation, insisting that none of it was planned. Soon after, a boy proudly presents their progress and reveals that they have captured nearly 500 creatures. Because of this number, Sakimori becomes surprised and questions whether so many giant rats truly existed. The boy explains that adult helpers, referred to as mic types, assisted in hunting them, which made the process faster. Sakimori also acknowledges that he supplied a large amount of mana to enhance the traps. The boy continues explaining that they hunted across 5 different locations, but monster appearances decreased in the final area. Because of repeated cycles, he estimates the process happened around 6 times, while some monster incense was wasted after exceeding 100 cores. Sakimori calculates that each area likely contained around 100 monsters, and that one incense stick should normally attract about 20. Because of these results, Sakimori asks whether any rare cores were found, realizing that long-term growth depends on exclusive hunting zones. The boy responds that no rare cores appeared and admits that the trigger conditions for spawning remain unknown. Because of this uncertainty, both of them agree that understanding spawn conditions would improve efficiency in future hunts. The boy also expected rare monsters to appear after defeating large numbers, but that assumption proves wrong. Sakimori then praises him for his careful tracking and effort. Because of this steady progress, they recall earlier days when they carried cop bread to outer areas after collecting 200 cores, and those supplies always sold immediately. Now, even gatekeepers and black market thugs treat them with respect, since they recognize their value as a reliable source of goods. Because of previous violent incidents, those thugs avoid conflict with them. As a result, no competitors appear and even Shingen remains inactive. Despite this growth, the boy wonders whether Sakimori is being overly considerate while he happily accepts a heart-shaped gift. Sakimori reflects that even if Shingen joined the system, profits would not change significantly. However, he recognizes that current earnings only cover initial expenses, leaving him with almost nothing for himself. A freshly prepared meal is then served, and everyone gathers around it with clear excitement. Because of the shared moment, the atmosphere becomes warm and cooperative. A woman holding a child expresses deep gratitude while eating together with the group, and Sakimori quietly joins in, eating while observing the scene. Another woman shares her past experience, explaining that she believed she and her baby would die after her husband was killed by a monster. Because of their current protection, she and her child survive, which creates a strong sense of relief among the group. A nearby sharp-eyed woman comments that desperate people can be guided easily if handled properly, indirectly teasing Sakimori for thinking about profit even while feeling sympathy. Sakimori then clarifies the structure of their arrangement, explaining that everyone will be assigned jobs instead of any unclear expectations. Because of this clarification, confusion about repayment through personal favors disappears. He organizes the group into different roles such as hunting giant rats, defeating slimes, cleaning, cooking, laundry, and producing monster incense. While planning these roles, he also considers expanding the store inventory once more funding becomes available. Because of his structured approach, he believes managing a large group remains possible. He then instructs everyone to begin organizing the base and encourages them to eat before the food gets cold. The group responds with enthusiasm, and at the same moment, rain begins to fall outside. Because of this sudden change in weather, Sakimori wonders if the rainy season has started. Immediately after, a figure rushes through the rain toward the building, drawing his attention. The newcomer crashes inside and turns out to be UKI, who is completely soaked and visibly desperate. Because of fear and urgency, Yuki pleads for help to save his community from destruction. He collapses in guilt and emotional exhaustion while Sakimori watches with a mix of concern and curiosity. Yuki then confesses that he set fire to a forest near a dungeon to farm monster cores through burning goblins. Because of this action, an unexpected swarm of monsters appears, drawn by burning slimes and spreading chaos far beyond his control. He admits he never expects such a massive response and becomes overwhelmed with regret. Sakimori immediately understands that the situation is much worse than described. Because of the scale of the outbreak, he suspects that a dangerous individual is intentionally directing monster swarms toward communities as feeding grounds. He recalls that several settlements, including Shingen's area, already get destroyed by similar attacks, which adds pressure to the situation. Yuki further admits that the chaos begins after setting up the stores, but insists it is not intentional. He expresses worry that losing a trading partner like Shingen's community will severely damage their system. Because of this fear, he becomes determined to act quickly despite the rain and rising tension. Sakimori responds by moving immediately, driven by both self-interest and urgency. Because of his shadow mastery, he accelerates at high speed and surprises everyone around him. While moving, he calls out to Shizuku and instructs her to switch positions without delay. Shizuku then responds by accelerating at an unnatural speed, far beyond normal human capability. Because of this sudden burst of power, her movement creates a shockwave that shocks the observers. She leaps across rooftops with sharp precision even under heavy rain. Sakimori reacts to her speed with surprise and quickly adjusts his position again, signaling another switch. Because of their rapid coordination, the situation becomes highly unstable and fast-changing. At the same time, gunfire echoes through the rain, revealing that Shingen has been hiding firearms. Because of this sudden escalation, it becomes clear that the conflict has reached a critical level where hidden weapons are now being fully used. The enemy forces keep pushing forward under the heavy rain, swinging their clubs as they try to break through the defense line. The defenders hold their ground, but sudden arrows fall from above, forcing them to step back and take cover. Because of the pressure from both sides, a skilled marksman pushes to take out the enemy archers first so they cannot keep supporting the charge. The barricades are quickly reinforced, but the arrow rain does not stop, making the situation harder to control. Amid this chaos, the commanding officer orders a wounded soldier to be pulled back while others rotate positions to keep the line stable. As the attack continues, the commander senses something unusual in the flow of battle and looks up sharply, noticing more arrows cutting through the storm. When the pressure suddenly feels overwhelming, he admits defeat in his mind, believing they are reaching their limit. However, the arrow rain abruptly stops, which creates confusion among the soldiers because they cannot understand what changed. Both the commander and the younger soldier scan the battlefield, realizing something unexpected has shifted the situation. A figure wearing a flowing coat appears and forms a rotating shadow barrier that blocks all incoming arrows. Because of this sudden defense, the soldiers are protected instantly, and the younger one recognizes the familiar presence of Sakimori. At the same time, a veteran warrior acknowledges his arrival with relief, noting that he did not expect him to show up at all. With the rain still pouring, the situation shifts into negotiation as both sides discuss conditions for cooperation, where rewards like monster cores, rare drops, weapons, and ammunition are demanded in exchange for support. The tension increases as demands grow heavier, including requests for rifles and extra bullets. The elder warrior questions the scale of those demands, but still orders his son to equip Sakimori properly because the battle cannot continue without him. Sakimori confirms that he has already used up his cavalry-type ability and is now out of mana, which limits his options. Even so, the elder warrior continues assigning roles, since the battlefield is still active and collapsing positions would be dangerous. Ammunition supplies are prepared at the same time, showing that the fight is entering a more serious phase. Sakimori confirms that goblin shamans are present and explains that he eliminates them whenever he spots them, but the enemy uses shields to protect them, which makes targeting difficult. Because of the increasing enemy count, he evaluates the situation as larger than a normal military unit, yet he still decides to continue fighting. He assigns Shingen to handle giant rats using slime-soaked sticks that are burned and thrown outside the barricade to control movement and draw enemies away. After that, he orders cleanup of remaining goblin forces once the initial wave is handled. Shingen questions the plan due to the scale of the enemy force, but Sakimori maintains confidence and continues issuing instructions. Because rain is falling heavily, he recognizes that water-based conditions are actually useful for their side since water mages become harder to counter in such weather. Taking advantage of this, he moves into action by combining shadow and water magic, forming thread-like attacks that extend across the battlefield. These threads are used to mark and track enemy positions, allowing precise targeting despite the large numbers. He then activates a shadow-based vision skill that lets him see enemy locations clearly and uses it to launch coordinated attacks. Ice needles follow, striking marked targets directly and disrupting goblin movement. Because the attacks are precise and invisible until impact, the goblin formation breaks down quickly, and confusion spreads through their ranks. Observers realize that the tracking threads were the reason every enemy could be hit accurately, even in such a large swarm. This level of control creates shock among allies, who begin to understand how dangerous his skill set really is. Sakimori then evaluates the remaining enemies, including goblin shamans, hobgoblins, and a goblin king, confirming that the battlefield still contains high-threat targets. Despite this, he prepares to eliminate them one by one, using controlled precision rather than large-scale attacks. Around him, the battlefield is already filled with defeated enemies, showing how quickly the situation has shifted in their favor. While the fighting continues, he briefly notices an unexpected stat surge, indicating a sudden increase in his mana, strength, stamina, dexterity, and magic, along with his unique store-based skill reaching maximum output. At the same time, Shizuku experiences a similar rapid growth in her abilities, explaining that absorbed mana and controlled output are causing multiple skill levels to rise at once instead of gradually. Because of this shared increase, both recognize that their power is accelerating faster than normal growth conditions allow. Sakimori acknowledges that his mana is regenerating and being absorbed faster than expected, which explains the sudden rise in his stats. As the enemy forces begin to retreat under pressure, allied soldiers push forward to clear remaining targets and collect monster cores. However, some commanders warn that the situation is not fully resolved because the Goblin King still exists and could reorganize the remaining forces for future attacks. Because of this risk, they agree that the battle is only partially won, not fully finished. In the end, Sakimori confirms that his level has increased again, which surprises those around him. With recovered mana and enough ammunition remaining, he concludes that he now has a realistic chance of facing the Goblin King directly as the battle shifts toward its final stage.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial.